Coming down with something? You might want to think twice before you consult with Dr. Google.
Welcome to Plain English, the podcast that goes at the right speed for English language learners. Listen now and read the transcript online at plainenglish.com. Now, here's Jeff, your host for today's episode.
We've all done it. Something's not quite right. You're not feeling well, and you have a question about your health. Instead of asking, say, a doctor or a nurse, what do? That's right, we Google it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, not 100% bad anyway, but there are some pitfalls to that, and that's what we'll talk about on today's episode. Welcome back to Plain English. I'm Jeff. JR is the producer. We can be reached at Jeff, Jeff, at plainenglish.com or jr@plainenglish.com. Today is January 21st, 2018, and this is episode 122. That means you can find the transcript with, of course, all the instant translations at plainenglish.com/122. Are you new here? Just joined us? Maybe starting off your New Year's resolution to practice English? Well, in that case, you might not know about the translations we have on our website. The way it works is we post a full transcript, word for word, every word I say, on the website for free. And JR and I highlight about 100 words for each episode, words that we think are hard to understand for English learners. And we have a team of translators who translate all those 100 words from English to Portuguese, Spanish, Japanese, Italian, French, and Chinese. And when you see a highlighted word, just hover your mouse over it or tap on it if you're on your smartphone, and you'll see the translation. It's pretty cool. plainenglish.com/122 to see today's transcript. By the way, I hope you liked last Monday's episode about the movie Roma. After I recorded that episode, it won the Golden Globe Award for Best Picture. And now some people are speculating that it might be a frontrunner for Best Picture at the Oscars later this year. That's exciting because if it wins, it would be the first time a Netflix film wins Best Picture. And I have already decided that I'm rooting for Roma to be Best Picture at the Oscars this year. I think it deserves it. But if you missed that episode of Plain English, just check out plainenglish.com/120, plainenglish.com/120, or just go back in your Spotify or podcast app to find it, just a couple episodes back. Oh, and did you hear the controversy about the subtitles in Roma? The movie is in Spanish, obviously, but the accent and dialect, if you would even call it a dialect, well, that's Mexican. So when Netflix released the film in Spain, they put what they call Iberian Spanish subtitles on there, just subtly changing the words wherever there are differences between the way something would be said in Mexico versus in Spain. A somewhat ridiculous example is when they say mamá in the movie, the subtitles in Spain change it to madre. The controversy is that it seems like Netflix is saying that Spaniards wouldn't be able to understand the accent and vocabulary of the Mexican characters. Movies and TV shows from Spain, after all, don't come with special subtitles for Spanish-speaking people in the Americas, for example. Alfonso Cuarón, the director, says that the European subtitles are parochial and offensive to Spaniards themselves. Ay, ay, ay. I agree, it's kind of silly, but you do know that subtitles are optional, right? You can turn them off. Sheesh. Let me tell you a quick story. I came down with seasonal allergies in August. Coughing, sneezing, congestion, stuff like that. It made reading the podcast difficult, by the way. After a few weeks, I went to the doctor and he confirmed what I suspected. It was just allergies. He suggested some medication and I took it. Life goes on. But then after a few weeks, I was still coughing. No other symptoms, but I mean coughing a lot. I didn't want to go back to the doctor, so I just kind of hoped it would go away. So another week or two later, I'm walking from my car into a baseball game, and I start to feel chest pains. Chest pains, okay, could be serious, right? Do I have a punctured lung? Am I having a heart attack? I'm a little young to have a heart attack, but who knows? So what do? Well, I do the typical male thing. I pull out my phone and I start Googling potential reasons for chest pains. There's a phrase for that. I consulted Dr. Google. And there are some pros and cons of consulting with Dr. Google. Pros and cons are like good things and bad things. So what are some bad things about consulting Dr. Google? For one, you might misdiagnose yourself. 1 minute, you might just have a bit of a sore throat. The next minute, you might be convinced you're dying of cancer. And it's true that if you have throat cancer, then a sore throat is one of the symptoms, I imagine. But the majority of the time, it's not. And the more time you spend going down the rabbit hole of page after page of symptoms, the more likely you are to misdiagnose yourself. One reason for that is that you'll click on the things that rank high in the Google search results. But those search results are based on clicks and page rankings, not based on any medical probabilities. So you might see a lot of pages about something terrible, whereas the most common thing may not be too bad after all. However, the other side of that coin is that you might have something serious, but then convince yourself that it's not too bad. The second risk is that you're looking at downright false information. We all joke that not everything on the internet is true, but at least in medicine, there are a lot of things that sound true, that are believable, but are nonetheless not true at all. Or they're misleading. The media report on studies all the time, but they are often just the ones that grab the headlines. And don't even get me started on the people out there selling pills and supplements and things. They'll make anything up just to sell you some useless supplement. So if you Google your symptoms, you might be looking at bad information, misleading information. You might misinterpret what's going on. You might cause yourself to worry unnecessarily about the scary disease that happened to show up at the top of the search results. But are there any good reasons to make an impromptu appointment with Dr. Google? There actually are. I found a good article that talks about the reasons why it can be beneficial to research your symptoms. A recent study from Australia said that 40% of people who Googled their symptoms experienced increased anxiety. That means they became more worried than when they started. But 77% said it had a positive influence on their interaction with their doctor. So to me, that sounds like you can have a better, more informed conversation with your doctor when you actually make an appointment. The key, some doctors said, is to tell your real doctor during your visit what your symptoms are, what you read, and what your questions are. Don't trust Google to solve all your problems, but you can use Google and the internet to prepare a little bit before your conversation. Doctors probably don't love it when patients come in thinking they know better than the doctor does, but they do like patients that are well informed and are prepared to communicate. Okay, so what happened to me in the parking lot of Miller Park? What I found in Google was that chest pains are actually a symptom of bronchitis. Bronchitis is when you just keep coughing weeks after you get a cold or have allergies. The pain is actually muscle pain in your chest. And that made total sense in the context of all my symptoms. I wasn't having a heart attack. I didn't have a punctured lung. I just had bronchitis. What I should have done is seen a doctor the next day and told him everything I researched. But of course, I didn't do that. I just waited for the symptoms to go away. Some things never change, right? I want to say hi to a couple of listeners today. Sedef is listening from Istanbul. He joined us here about 3 months ago and has been listening to 1 or even 2 old episodes a day. And now he's finally caught up. Yasin is also from Istanbul. He's been listening since January 1st, 2018. I said 18, a year he's been with us. Thanks, Yasin. 2 listeners from Istanbul, a beautiful city. It's got an old town side with the mosques and the old spice market, and a new side with the more modern shopping on the Istiklal and restaurants and such. There's a bridge between the 2 sides. It's 2 levels. On the bottom level of the bridge, you have restaurants with beautiful river views, and on the top level are the cars and these guys fishing off the side. It's pretty cool. And we have a lot of listeners in Turkey, which is great. Okay, the expression I want to tell you about today is down a rabbit hole. This is one you can picture. We use this expression when you are entering into an unknown, disorienting, confusing place that's hard to get out of. Usually we use this metaphorically. You're not actually in a physical place, but a mental place. A mental place that's confusing, disorienting, and hard to escape. We usually use down the rabbit hole when someone goes off in a pointless direction that can do that person harm. The way I used it before is that you might not want to go down the rabbit hole of reading page after page of symptoms because it could lead you to misdiagnose yourself and also waste a lot of time. Like, you might start off with a little bit of nausea. By the third page you click, you're pregnant. By the fifth, you have cancer. By the ninth page, you might have to cut off your leg. That's going down a rabbit hole when you probably just need some fresh air. Often, we use this phrase as a way of cautioning someone not to do something, not to start something that will be a pointless waste of time or frustrating. I don't think you want to go down that rabbit hole, you might say, if you think someone is starting a pointless task that will only end up in frustration. Here's a great example. We're vaguely aware of our online privacy these days, right? So let's say you're worried about your personal data being online. You want to find out what companies know about you. What does Facebook track about you? What companies does Facebook share its data with? What about cookies on the websites you visit? That's a rabbit hole. I'm warning you right now, you'll never figure it out. Your data is out there. You're not getting it back. There's no way to find out who has it. You just have to live with it. You can go down the rabbit hole of trying to track what every company knows about you, but you'll never figure it all out, and you'll just be miserable in the end. That's my opinion. Speaking of Facebook, isn't that the mother of all rabbit holes? You browse through it, then you see someone you knew a long time ago, maybe from growing up, then you click through a few pages. That's kind of like going down a rabbit hole. Or you click on a link to an article, and then you click on the other links at the bottom of the article. The next thing you know, it's 2 hours later. Classic rabbit hole. I'm involved in an organization. I'm on the board of directors. And one of the other people on this board of the organization is extremely difficult to work with. At the beginning, I tried to figure out why she was so difficult, but I quickly realized I was going down a rabbit hole. No point in trying to figure out why she is the way she is. Better to just try to deal with her as little as possible. I think I saved myself from going too far down the rabbit hole in that case. Thanks for being with us on Plain English today. If you're not yet part of our email list, you can sign up by going to plainenglish.com/mail. Subscribers to the email list get summaries of each episode, plus an additional vocabulary word for each episode, an extra English word every Monday and Thursday. Plus, you also get links to English articles about the main topic, so you can read more if you're interested. plainenglish.com/mail. See you right back here on Thursday.